you've seen Formula One across many different eras. How did you see the drivers change in recent years?
When Jim was racing in 1960s, he would drive a saloon car in the morning, he would drive a sports car, and then he would do the Formula One race, and then maybe do another race after that. Where today, the drivers come out of their motorhomes and do the practice, and then go away again, do a few interviews, and then come out for the Grand Prix. You don't get the same, you don't get much chance to see the drivers now like you used to do in Jim's day. The paddock was much more open, and the drivers were outside, always in public areas, where now we're shut away from the public, you don't get a chance to see them. Also, there wasn't the money. The drivers are getting, Verstappen getting 50, 60 million pounds to do that. Jim was getting a few £1,000, you know, and it's just a different way of life from what it is today. And again, I don't think Lotus Colin Chapman had a lot of money to pay anyway.
Jim died on April 7, 1968, at the wheel out of an F2 car at Hockenheim. Many people have different opinions on what happened, because obviously to this day it's not clear what made him crash. What do you think was the issue of Jim Clark's crash?
We have been out to Hockenheim, and we've seen the bit where the accident happened. We went for Jim's 50th anniversary, and we went to the corner and saw the trees which Jim hit. But it appears to be he had a puncture, obviously. But I think he had a problem with the engine as well. The engine was cutting out. It wasn't going very well, and I think maybe the power was coming in and going out, and I think maybe he got a sudden burst of power, which put the car sideways and off into the trees, because obviously no barriers. But I don't think we'll ever know. Nobody's never been able to definitely prove what happened. But it wouldn't be a driver's fault, because Jim was very safe that way and everything else. And I know his car hadn't been going well, and he wasn't very happy with the car. But I do think it was a power surge or something.
Your uncle James Clark didn't want Jim to race. Why? And when he became a successful driver, was his father proud?
Jim had four sisters and just himself, so there was 5 children, but only one son. And Jim's father and mother wanted Jim to carry on farming the family farms. And so Jim was quite happy to do that. But at the same time, Jim, like all young farmers and other young people, were keen to do other motor things as well. And there was the Berwick District Motor Club in Berwick, which we all joined, and we used to do driving tests and hill climbs and things, just with our family cars, nothing special. But anyway, one day Jim was away with Ian Scott Watson up in Aberdeenshire, north of Scotland, and Ian said, "Why don't you have a shot? Nobody will know, your father won't know, whatever, just have a..." And he did. He drove the car, and he was 3 seconds a lap quicker than Jim straight away. So Ian Scott Watson said, "Well, you'd be better driving the car other than me." So that's how Jim got started. But some of Jim's family had been at Aberdeen, a place called Crimond, and had seen Jim racing. Anyway, 1 or 2 of them had phoned Jim's parents at home and said, "Great to see Jim driving today." And of course Jim's father knew nothing about that. So when Jim came home from Aberdeen, he was in big trouble with his father and mother for driving the cars. But eventually, there's a local garage called John McBain and Son, a garage owner, and he had the Border Reivers team there, and he was driving sports cars. And because Jim was doing well in the motor club, and said to Jim, "Would you like to have a try in one of these cars?" And Jim's father and mother realised that they couldn't really stop him, because he was much better than the average driver. So he started driving for Border Reivers at that time.
Jim drove basically all his F1 career with Lotus, but he never drove for Ferrari. But did he have any contacts with Enzo Ferrari about
No, not that I'm aware of. Jim had signed up when he first went south with Aston Martin, and he was going to drive for Aston Martin to begin with, before he got to know Colin Chapman at Lotus. But Aston Martin were still a bit behind with the development, and they had a front engine car that Jim was going to drive. But in the event, the Aston Martin never proved competitive and never really got developed. And Colin Chapman got Jim out of his contract with Aston Martin, and Jim went to Lotus. But to my knowledge, he never had any contacts with Ferrari, because he never wanted to go anywhere else. Although the Lotus cars were built very lightweight and a bit fragile, and used to weight down, but Jim was very sympathetic with his car, and the mechanics would always say, you can always tell which car Jim had driven. The gears were less worn, the tyres were less worn, and he was much more sympathetic with the car.
Jim still holds the record of more Grand Slam, that basically is pole position, and winning the race, leading every lap with the fastest lap. He has the 8 Grand Slams, with Hamilton and Verstappen behind him with 6 and Schumacher with 5. When you see these numbers today, what do you think about it?
Well, you know a lot about the subject, you're very knowledgeable, because it's good to hear, because you're right, he's still the leader with what we call the Grand Slams. And these days Jim was just doing sort of 9 or 10 Grand Prix a year. Now they're doing 22 or 23 Grand Prix, so they've got much more chance to pass Jim's total. But here we are, all these 60 years on, and still haven't caught Jim up.
Do you still follow F1 today? Which is the driver that reminds you the most of Jim Clark today?
I do still follow Formula 1, I do find it maybe not so appealing as it used to be, with the DRS and all that kind of thing. I think Piastri is coming through there now and doing well, and looks to be very cool, calm, and Verstappen's got a different mentality to Jim. Jim wouldn't be as aggressive as maybe that Verstappen is, but I think to win races you need to have a certain amount of aggression. But Piastri's quietly coming through there, and it's good to see that he can work with Lando Norris as well. They seem to be quite friendly anyway.
What is Jim Clark's legacy that you'd most like to see passed on the younger generations following F1 today?
I think his modesty, his fair driving, it never do anything bad at all, driving, cutting corners or putting somebody off. I think his modesty and his smile, his good manners, and that's what he's remembered for being like. He always was. You never saw him getting angry, and when you speak to his mechanics, who are still alive, Beaky Sims and a few others, they all say that Jim never got flustered, never got annoyed. There was one time he said there was something wrong with the back, and they checked it and said, no, can't find anything wrong. He said, well, there's something not quite right. And at the end of the day, after they did find, it was a wheel bearing that wasn't right, but Jim could tell them that from driving the car, but the mechanics didn't see that. And so Jim was very good at telling people, feedback from the car, what was wrong, what was right. And he was great at nursing a car as well. I think I could Spa when the gear box had a problem, and he had to hold the gear lever in position for the whole race. And there was another time at Brands Hatch when the oil pressure in the engine was very low, and he knew that if we went around the corner with a lot of revs on, the bearings would run dry and the engine would seize and stop. So he'd switch the engine off to go around the corners, turn it on again down the straights, and he still managed to beat Graham Hill by about 3 seconds. So he was very sympathetic to his cars and machinery.
Thank you, Doug, for this amazing interview. It has been really good to chat with you about Jim. So I want to thank you so much for this interview.
Well, nice to speak to you, Noah, and I'm so pleased to see a young boy like you being so interested in what you do and all your different podcasts that you're doing, and long may you continue to do it and have success, because it's great that people like you that do that. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you.